Good day and welcome to this week's issue of Print21, the weekly news bulletin for the printing industry. My name is Wayne Robinson, editor of the magazine and the website and the video. This week we are at the local beach in Australia, not because any printing goes on here, but because the beach is open, and that is symbolic of the whole country, which hopefully now will be opening up. We're all awaiting a big announcement on Friday from the National Cabinet, the Prime Minister, and at that point we're all hoping that the industry, the economy, the printing industry, society will start to take the steps to recovery. From what has been, from an economic point of view, from a printing industry point of view, a really difficult time. April will go down as easily the worst month in the entire history of the 200-year-old printing industry here and in New Zealand. Printers, if they've achieved 50% of the sales they expected, have done really well. Labels and packaging is different, of course. They've been going gangbusters. Jet Technologies, for instance, Jack Malky tells me he's at a 500% upturn in some of his material sales, as panic buying in supermarket has seen product fly off the shelves, and of course all the packaging that goes around with that. But for commercial printers, it's been a different story. Very difficult month. There's been casualties. Most high profile of those is Sydney Binding, the perfect binding trade house located in Sydney. Its owners, the four owners, have decided to close the doors. Peter Halter, George Austin, John McPherson, Emma Freelingo's deciding that the lack of work that came through in second half of March and April isn't going to see enough upturn in the coming months to see them take the business forward, possibly running up some debt. They've closed the doors. That leaves the country with only one perfect binding trade house, Marvel Binding down in Melbourne. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Sydney printers and their perfect binding requirements. Do they send the work down there? Will some enterprising person buy up a perfect binding line here? The bigger Coro A7 from Sydney Binders, that'll be going overseas. It's been bought by Binding Machinery Services, as has much of the rest of its kit. Wayne Easter at Marvel Binding tells me it's been a difficult month. He's had to put off an afternoon shift, but he's got enough work coming in. As the country waits for the Scott Morrison and Josh Frydenberg to come up with a framework for recovery, printers are already starting to look forward. The biggest trade printer in the country, CMYKhub, is now back operating in all 5 of its state hubs. It had consolidated printing down during the latter half of March and April, all 5 back up and running. And Dane Nankervis, Chief Operating Officer there, tells me that the company has developed a support program for its resellers and encourages each of those resellers, printers that use it for the peaks or for most of their printing, to get in touch, and they'll work with them to come up with ideas and solutions to help drive print forward as the economy comes out of the bleak times that it's been through for the past 6 weeks. The biggest trade printer, biggest online printer in the country, Vistaprint, owned by Simpress. Simpress saw a 65% plunge in sales during the month of April, or the first half of latter half of March, first half of April. It recovered. By the end of April, sales are down 40%, but that's taken a huge hit. And Simpress has instigated various means in hiring staff to mitigate against the costs that it's now losing. Also in the news this week, well, it's not just small printers. Vista Print is a large printer. Vistaprint's business is for the small end of town, but it's not just the small printers that have been suffering. The big two, Ive Novato, have had a really grim month as the supermarkets have held back on catalogue publishing because there's no need to entice people into stores when they're queuing up there at 6 in the morning, banging on the doors to get in. Also, of course, the publication side of their business, we've seen magazines trim paginations and some magazines go completely to online as a result of the virus. So everyone's had a hard time there. There's some good news though. The petition that the PVCA, the AMWU, Marvel Binding are promoting, the campaign to bring Australian government and taxpayer-funded work off Chinese presses and back into Australian print shops. That's gaining traction. PVCA has been very active among MPs, government and opposition, and is now making a written submission to Michael McCormack, Deputy Prime Minister, in order to help them, the government leaders, see the error of their ways and bring that taxpayer-funded print back to Australia. That's it for this week's issue of Print21. All these stories and much more that you won't see anywhere else are on the website. Go to print21.com.au. This is me, Wayne Robinson, signing off.